Perfect. What we're going to need for equipment today is you're going to need a foam roller of any size, any density. They have ones that are a little bit harder foam or whatever feels comfortable to you should be totally fine. And ideally, it's not required, but if you happen to have 2 tennis balls or 2 lacrosse balls or anything that has a little bit of give to it, we're going to be starting with some foot rolling, and they are also a really great tool for adaptation. So if you need to either progress or regress any of the rolls to go a little deeper, those suckers can get in a little bit deeper in some areas, and also manually you can actually work a little bit softer if you feel like you need to. So there's lots of options. It's a great modification tool if you need to. If you have them, great. If you don't worry about it. It's totally fine. Otherwise, we're just going to go ahead and kick it off. The beginning portion is basically just meant to open up all the joints, and then we're going to go into our first of like I do my things in groupings. So there's going to be a grouping of 3 exercises or 3 rolls that are kind of like correlated in a very specific way as within the body, how it integrates itself. We'll hit each one of those 3 and then go back and then encore whichever of those 3 resonates most for you, because everybody's going to have a different experience. We all hold tension in our body in a very unique way, so one of those 3 will probably resonate more for you, and you'll have an opportunity to visit it a second time, but it'll be by your own choice. So that's kind of how I start this whole thing off. If you have a tennis ball, lacrosse ball, etc., I'd like to start off with some foot rolling. If you don't have a tennis ball, don't worry about it. I got you. We're going to do some foot stretches, but I want to kick these off. If you do have a tennis ball, I'd like for us to just start on the right foot and just kind of scroll through the bottom of the foot, giving as much pressure as feels comfortable, kind of tracing the alignment through the metatarsal. All right? And there's really no right or wrong way to do this. This is basically just to loosen up the plantar fascia, loosen up all of those intrinsic muscles of the foot, and you can go all the way into the instep on the inside of your arch. There's a lot of really, really tender spots in there. So if that feels good to you, go ahead and go to town for the next couple of minutes. If you've got the tennis ball, that's the ideal way to start out. Otherwise, follow me in a couple of foot stretches. What I'd like for us to do is go ahead and start with your foam roller in front of you, and what we're going to do is we're going to start in kind of a quadruped position with your hands on the roller. Tuck the toes under and spread the toes into the floor. Then from here, press back into the balls of the foot so you're stretching the feet already. Then lift the knees and pull the heels back so you feel a little bit of a stretch through the bottom of the foot and also through the Achilles. And then hopefully you'll get to a place where you can keep the toes spread and lay your knees on top of the roller and just give your body weight to it. If this is too much pressure for you, I encourage you to ease up and just keep some of the weight in your hands and try and drive the heels back. We just want to open up the balls of the feet. If you are doing the foot rolling with a tennis ball, I would say right about now go ahead and switch to the left foot. Otherwise, go ahead and continue to do these stretches with me. Just breathing for a second here. And then from here, go ahead and press the heels into the floor. Go ahead and come to a forward fold. And then just start to tread through the feet. Trying to really feel the space specifically between your pinky toe and the one right next to it. Especially if you wear shoes a lot. If you need to come up here, you can do it here as well. So you want to feel the space between your pinky toe and the one right next to it. Those are the ones that usually get separation anxiety. So you really want to give as much space to those as possible. And then from here, last thing for my foot stretch people, we're going to go into toe flips. Go ahead and take one ball of the foot over, and then we're going to flip over, destroy our pedicure, and actually flip over very gently. So we're actually not pushing down into the knuckles, we're actually pushing the top of the foot forward. So there's that action happening. And then go and get the other side. So with you, if you're tennis ball rolling right now, go ahead and ease up, and then we'll all meet together in a forward fold. So go ahead and roll down through the spine to just place your hands on the floor or on your roller at whatever height feels comfortable for you, and just try and stretch the heels back. Feel pressure through the heels as you feel your feet expanding into the floor. Drop the head, shake the head yes and no. This whole first section is really just to open up, loosen up the joints as much as possible. So try and examine the body for tension. If you're able to, go ahead and shift your weight in and out of your hands as you feel the weight and the pressure kind of redistribute itself from your heels to your toes. And every time that you rock, try and see if you can soften the bottoms of the feet just a little bit more. Give yourself about 2 deep breaths into the ribs. Also breathing into the backs of the ribs as well. And then from here, bend the knees and slowly work your way down through a quadruped position. And then from here, go ahead and widen the knee stance a little bit. Hands go onto the roller, sit the weight back into a child's pose, but with the hands on the roller so that you can drop the chest just a little bit more passively. From here, try and feel the shoulder blades wrapping around your rib cage to the front, so there's that widening, trying to create as much space between your shoulder blades as possible, and then start to breathe into that space. Letting the chest drop with every exhale just a little bit further, feeling the tailbone reach further back, giving length to the lower back as much as possible. And then breathing into whatever space you start to feel like you create. If you can feel that space in your low back a little bit more, breathe into that area. And then from here, go ahead and roll it back up. Give yourself a moment to breathe. We'll come to a seated position. Nice and easy, no equipment or anything. We're just going to come to a diamond position. So the soles of the feet are together. We'll be going into some of the rotators of the hips today, so I want to make sure that this feels nice and loosey-goosey before we get there. So this is your diamond position. You want to make sure it's not the one where we usually tuck the heels into the crotch, butterfly position. We want this one to be a little bit more lengthened out. From here, just rock from side to side and get a sense of your ischium, your sits bones. You want to make sure that you feel each of them rocking from side to side. And start to feel that movement of rocking side to side helps to loosen up the back just a little bit, which is really nice. And then from there, find an equal distribution of weight on either side of your sits bones. And then rock the pelvis forward and back on top of it. So my hands are on my shins, so I'm not clenching my low back to create that arch. I'm actually pulling myself forward and letting the collarbones depress down as the throat elongates. And then we curve and feel the shoulder blades separate. So collarbones pull down, throat comes forward, shoulder blades retract. And then from here, try and find your middle between those 2 points. Should bring you to somewhere upright. And then from here, hand goes to the side, easy side reach. Hold it here for a second, still getting a sense of pressure on that opposite ischium. Sometimes when we go over to the other side, that pelvis likes to rock with it. Try to keep that sense of every stretch has 2 lines of intention. One is going up, the other one is going down. So the hip is trying to stay low. Then from here, push into the floor to come back up and over to the other side. Find that side reach, remembering 2 lines of intention, up and over and pressing down nice and easy. This should give you a sense of an elongation of the low back rather than a compression. One more breath, and then start to float all the way back up. One more time, go and arch forward, rocking to the front of the sits bones, and then from here, let everything fold forward on top of it. Feel the weight of your forehead dropping towards your heels, and shoulder blades relaxing. We're going to hold here for about 3 to 5 breaths, trying to get a sense that the breath is coming from your back. So can you fill the back of the ribs with air? Maybe one more deep breath just to bring things a little bit deeper on that exhale. Next thing we're going to get into is your hip flexors. This is one of my favorite stretches. Go ahead and come up to your neutral position. Place your hands behind you and then fold your left knee over your right. Take that top knee and pull it back. So you're in this pinwheel position. Try and get the thigh bone as open as possible because we're going to try and stretch this muscle right here. You're going to go back onto this back elbow and then reach against it as much as possible. So it's almost the sensation that you're trying to grab your foot behind you, but you're not going that far, obviously. So there's 2 lines of tension here as well. Obviously the arm is reaching up and back, opening the chest. The other one is your butt is squeezing, trying to pull the thigh open even more. You should feel a deep stretch through the hip flexor, But what I like about this stretch is that it's completely controllable. If it feels like there's any compression in your low back or anything, you just ease up, pull the knee in a little bit more. So you totally have control through this. One more breath, and then bring it back. Start by folding the knees back together, unfold into your diamond, and then replace your hands back behind you to get to the other side. Fold the knee over, open it back as far as you're willing to go, squeeze the butt, and then lower to your elbow as you reach long. Again, 3 to 5 breaths here. Continuing to breathe nice and long into this stretch. And then from here, start to ease up, pull yourself back forward, fold the knees up, and then come back to your diamond stretch. One last time, I'd like for you to fold forward and breathe into your back as much as you can. And then from here, start to roll it back up. Grab your roller. We're going to lay down on it for these last couple of stretches before we get into our grouping and get a little bit deeper. Go ahead and take the roller as you lie on the floor. Place it right underneath your belt line. And then bring the knees into the chest. So hopefully in this position, you can get to a place where your hands are just holding your knees in place and not letting them separate. And you can just find a very passive relaxation. The low back just gets to relax. From here, go ahead and start to stretch the toes over the head. However far they will go, they'll go. You may be able to get to a fully straightened leg position. You may actually stop right about here. That's fine. Whatever feels good. We're just going for a low back and a little bit of a hamstring stretch. Find whatever feels right to you. We're going to do 3 breaths. Every exhale, I'd like for you to draw the heels up and away by flexing your feet. So we inhale with the toes pointed, exhale with the heels pressing, trying to reach over your head. So start with an inhale. As you exhale, heels drive. And then inhale again for cycle 2. Exhale, drive the heels over. The third one we're going to hold, and I'd like for you to get a sense of your ischium again, your sits bones. This time, go for your inhale, point the toes. As you exhale, flex the feet like normal, but also see if you can get your sits bones to drive down. Remember, 2 lines of tension, or 2 lines of intention. Exhale, press the heels, feel the ischium, the sits bones drawing down in that opposition. And just settle here for a second. The legs might be a little bit shaky in this position, and that's okay. That's totally fine. That's neuromuscular remapping. The muscles are figuring this out. If it gets too unbearable, go ahead and come out of the stretch and come back in when you're ready. Hold it for about 1 more breath here. And then from here, go ahead and bend the knees back to that ball position. Keep a hold of your right leg and extend the left leg nice and long. So thigh bone drawing down through the heel, and let the thigh bone drop at the very bottom. So you're bracing your pelvic position with that knee that you're holding into your chest. And then from there, it's about gravity. So this is a passive stretch, letting gravity draw the thigh bone low to the floor. You should feel a little bit of an opening through your hip flexor. And you can stay here, or if you'd like to, you can actually up the ante by straightening out the leg just a little bit more. Going back to that hamstring stretch. To go into our breaths, we'll do 2 breaths here. Every exhale, I'd like for you to draw this bottom heel out and down. So there's a little bit more activation with these ones. Deep breath in. And exhale, heel reaches long. One more time. If you'd like to add the press of the heel on the top leg as well on this exhale, you can. Same as we did before. Deep breath in. Exhale, maybe both heels drive apart from each other. And then hold. And then start to soften everything up. Bring it all the way back in. Go to the other side. Start by bracing the left knee into the chest. And then find the length of the thigh bone pulling down in the opposite direction. Once you get there, let gravity do all the work. Let this be passive. And then one more breath just to release into this just a little bit more. And then we'll start our top leg. Now, if you're going to do the top leg, go ahead. Otherwise, it's the same 2 breaths driving that heel down. So establish the hamstring stretch if you're going to go for it first. And then take one deep inhale, and as you exhale, draw that bottom heel down. Exhale long. The second exhale is the opportunity to increase the stretch with the top heel. So both heels are trying to drive away from each other. One more inhale. And exhale. Find the stretch at the depth that you're willing to go and hold it here for another like 10 or 15 seconds. And then start by softening both knees and then work your way back to the small ball. One last stretch before we get into our group. So what I'd like for us to do is, coming from this small ball, let the knees gravitate towards the floor by opening out. So level 1, you can just find a nice inner thigh stretch, guided by your hands. Just kind of let the gravity pull your knees apart for an inner thigh stretch. This is level 1. Level 2, you could go to like a mock happy baby pose where you're grabbing either your ankles or your insteps or your big toes, and you're trying to find a perpendicular position of your shin bone to the floor. So it's not here, it's actually open. So if there was a camera above you, they would see the soles of your feet and the backs of your legs, your hamstrings. Level 3 would be trying to still keep the hamstrings towards the ceiling, going for a full straddle. So that's option 3. I often see this stretch done where people just kind of go straight into it this way. We'd actually want to go for a rotation since the hips are elevated. So the heels are up above the toes if possible if you're going for this one. And just stay here for another breath or two before we move into our first group. Start by softening the knees. Take your hands to the outsides of the knees and use the hands to bring the knees back together so you're not tensing your inner thighs. Feet go back on the floor and exit off the roller. Okay, moving into our first of the grouping, we're going to go into piriformis. This is a pretty standard one. We see this one a lot because it feels like amazing afterwards. So your piriformis is a rotator muscle, small rotator muscle at the back of this this bone right here. This bone on the side of your hip, that's part of your thigh bone, the greater trochanter of your femur. We want to hit the back edge of that. So we're going to do this one of 2 ways. I want you to find the one that feels right to you. We're going to sit on the roller with our right butt cheek, and then just kind of lean over with both knees together, just onto the side. And from here, you can kind of roll a little bit deeper all the way up closer to the low back, and then all the way down to that ischium, that sits bone that I was talking about earlier. You're going from there all the way up to the upper rim of the pelvis. And anywhere that feels like an identifiable, like, ooh, you'll know it if it changes your facial expression or your breathing a little bit. That's the right space. Go ahead and hold it there and just breathe for a second. If you're finding nothing, try rocking over a little bit further onto the side of the hip. So the more that you drop your knees over to the side, you may find a little bit more. So with the legs in this position, there's one of 2 possibilities. You might be getting the piriformis, which is a small, about size of 2 fingers muscle, way deep in the hip, or you might be getting your glute medius. Both of them are great to get. So anything that feels like it needs it, go ahead and park it right there, breathe it out, and try and get that muscle to relax. If you want to go further, you could cross that top leg over into a figure 4. So if I'm on my right butt cheek, my right knee is rotated over in that figure 4. And then do the same thing. Rock over. The further side you go on the hip, the more you're going to find. I'd like for you to identify one spot that feels like it needs it, and just kind of hang out there and breathe. You can choose to very, very small and slow scrub the muscle. So what we do is just a little forward back motion on the roller. if you want. Sometimes the scrubbing might make the muscle tense up a little bit. So in that case, I would say just hold and let the pressure do the magic. But otherwise, just breathe here for a sec. The good news is this is a smaller muscle, so we don't have to spend as much time. The larger the muscle, the longer we want to hold it. For this one's more about holding it for a little while and then coming back to it if needed. But for now, go ahead and rock it back, and then get ready to go to the other side. Transitions, start with the two knees together. That's the mildest way to go into it, and then choose to progress it as you feel like you need to. And then from here, both knees go over to one side, and start to kind of wander around. All the way up to the pelvic crest, all the way down to the ischium, and then of course leaning further side if you want to explore a little bit deeper. Remember, the further side you go, the more there is. And you're looking for that one spot that resonates for you, that one spot that kind of hurts so good where you're like, ooh. And then if you want to progress it further, cross the top leg over, and then do the same process. So what this crossing of the leg does is it rotates the femur bone, so that greater trochanter, that bone rotates down and kind of gets out of the way, so you can get a little deeper. Little warning flags. If you notice that when we get into this one, if there is a burning or a very, very localized, like ouch, ouch, ouch position, that means that your piriformis, that's probably your piriformis, is probably overly tense, especially if you find it's more painful on one hip versus the other. That's a warning sign. If you have that much of pain, generally speaking, it might mean that you might need to be doing this a little bit more often. The danger of an overly tight piriformis muscle is that it can start to kind of pinch the sciatic nerve, and then you get that sciatic nerve pain that goes down the leg, which is not a fun thing to deal with. This is one of the best ways to alleviate that. And if that still doesn't get any better, then you might want to go and see some sort of a body worker. Just make sure it's not anything even more problematic. One more deep breath to finish this side out, and then go and slowly come out of that position. So that's the first of our 3 in this group. The next one is going to be an easy one. It's your hamstring. So take your foam roller and place it underneath one thigh. So you want to have it so that the roller is under one thigh, not the other, because when we go into this one, we're going to be rolling all the way up and down the hamstring, which is not going to feel like much for a lot of people until we actually go a little bit closer to the medial portion. So in this case, what I want to do is take this side of my hip that is not on the roller and let it rotate down so I can actually feel the pressure a little bit more towards the inner thigh. And then from there, start to work about 1 inch per second all the way from the top of the knee all the way down to the bottom of that ischium. There's that word again. You're going to know that word by the end of this class. Ischium. So if you're ever on Anatomy Jeopardy, you'll know. You'll know that word. You may find as you go through this, you may find that it's a little bit more tender the higher up you go towards the butt. That is usually where the muscle pulls if you've ever pulled your hamstring muscle. That is usually the hot spot. Let's go ahead and hang out there for a little bit. Again, smaller stringy muscles, so you can either choose to go 1 inch per second and just keep on making passes all the way up and down, or find that one spot that sings out to you and just kind of hang out there for a little bit. Smaller muscle, we don't have to spend a whole lot of time there. We're almost on to the other leg. If you'd like to enhance this a little bit more, what you can do is bring the chest closer forward to your knee. So the further that you come forward, you're going to add a little bit of weight, and you'll also be elongating the muscle just a little bit, allowing you to go a little bit deeper. So you can kind of play with that if you want. Some people find it useful to actually manually push the thigh down to give a little bit more pressure. Because this one is not like in the other class that I did where we're doing the IT band, where it's just like, oh wow, it's so much pain. No matter what, you just get there and you're like, oh my god. This is not the experience on this muscle. So you got to kind of look a little bit more. And then start to work your way to the other side. So start square, so your hips are square with this roll. and then start to work your way towards the inside of the leg, still on the hamstring. So the hamstring complex is a really interesting thing. We think of it as one muscle. It is not. It's actually four. There's four muscles that make up the hamstring complex. And when we usually do our typical sit and reach, or much like the stretches that we did in the beginning of the class with pulling one leg, you're getting the outer two. There's two muscles that go on the outside of the hamstring. They stretch very easily. The ones on the inside, you can stretch them absolutely. Happy baby pose is a really good example of that. But they sometimes, you don't get as deep as you need to, so they hold a little bit more tension. So start to work your way into those medial two of your hamstring complex and just kind of look for anything that might be going on. Little warning flag too on this one. If you're noticing the right leg versus the left leg are two different stories, if one is like way different, there's a risk involved in that. If you've ever pulled one side of the hamstring, right, or one hamstring and not the other, sometimes that can often offset your hips a little bit. It makes you prone to dislodging your SI joint, especially in women, because women's pelvis is a little bit different. And also this can work your way into your low back. So any kind of instability or lack of symmetry between your right and your left leg often work their way up. Injuries travel up the body typically when you're talking about repetitive stress injuries. So if you can identify that, oh my god, my left hamstring is way tighter than the other, this is something that you want to come back to prevent that from working its way into your low back if it is not done so already. This is how this practice can be very preventative. And go ahead and start to finish out on this one. We are going to finish with the IT band. So we kind of got the glute medius a little bit when we were doing the piriformis. That attaches to your IT band. We're going a little bit more typical with the stuff that we're doing today, so I'd like to go and start off in this position for our third in this group. So this third group, we're going to start with the hip bones stacked right one on top of the other. I'm at the top of my hip right below that greater trochanter I was talking about, that bone on the side of the hip. And then from here, 1 inch per second, all the way down from the hip, all the way down to the knee. This one tends to be a little bit more nasty. So feel free to go as slow as you need to, and only work as deep as you feel like you need to. A couple of things to watch out for here. We're going down the exact side of your thigh. You want to make sure that your hips stay perpendicular to each other. Oftentimes when it gets too painful, sometimes the top of your pelvis starts to rock back because it's more comfortable back there. You want to keep it very lined up. And then from here, go 1 inch per second just until you start to feel like, okay, that's about as much as I can tolerate, and then maybe kind of like ease back up. And you don't want to roll it out like it's pizza dough. Like, I see a lot of people do this because they consider it just like a strength training exercise, like you're doing repetitions. That's going to add neuromuscular tension. You want to go slow, deep, and methodical. And as you do this, start to be aware of this muscle right in the front, your quadricep. So the IT band is not a muscle. It's a piece of fascia that's strong enough to pull a truck, right? So if it's tense, it's going to cause a lot of damage. So as you're doing this, the muscle that's going to want to contract to make it a little bit more comfortable is your quadricep. So if your quadricep starts to clench, you're going to be adding a lot of tension and not working as deep as you want to for this roll. This one is a little bit larger, so we do want to spend the time. And I usually find it a little bit more effective to go 1 inch per second and just continue to go as far up and as far down as you feel like you can. And just breathe. Try to relax that quadricep muscle. About one more pass and then we'll go to the other side. So to start this one off, start on your elbow. Lift it under. So you're looking for that bone, the greater trochanter of the hip on the side. You want to go right below it. That's your starting point. Start by relaxing your quadricep. Stack up your hips so that they're perpendicular to the floor. And then 1 inch per second. Work your way down as far as you're willing to go without passing over the knee. And again, just not kind of it's never really a good idea, especially with these painful foam roll experiences, to think like, okay, I got to do this, and think of it more of an assignment. Think of foam rolling more like an investigation, right? Instead of thinking like, okay, I have to go up and then I have to go down and I need to do 1, 2, 3 and then I'm done. Think of it as like, okay, I'm going to see how far I can go. And how bad does it hurt, right? Can I still breathe? How's the quadricep? Am I still keeping my hips aligned? Investigate what you can tolerate and listen to your body as you're doing it rather than just telling your body what to do. Sometimes in the fitness industry we get so enamored with the idea of telling your body what to do. And if you think about your relationship with your body, and this applies in more than just fitness and exercise, if you think about your body as a person that you're talking to, when you work out or whenever you're doing anything, it's kind of like a conversation. You're telling your body, I need you to do this. I'm giving you this assignment. And then your body is giving you feedback. This feels like this. I'm having a problem here. Oftentimes in the fitness industry, especially these days where we're so adrenaline junkied out, there's only one end of the conversation. You have you're telling your body, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this, and there's never the reciprocation of listening. There's never that recovery period where we actually say, oh, how's my body doing? And if you think about it, if you put that in terms of a conversation with another person, you and your body, it's kind of an abusive relationship, isn't it? Where you're just telling your body, do this, do this, do this. I have to do 5 of these and 10 of these. And there's never that listening. Something's going to give at some point. So this class, this practice, is that other end of the conversation. Spend about another 10 or 15 seconds on this side. And then go ahead and start to ease up, coming out of it. Take a second to let that marinate. To close this out, what I'd like to do is encore one of those 3. So you get to choose between the IT band, which we just did, your piriformis, which was this one or this one, right? And your hamstring, which was this one. I'd like for you to choose one of those 3 for each leg. Here's the thing. This is not like a sculpt class where if you do 8 on one side, you got to do 8 on the other just for symmetry. This is the listening practice. So if you noticed when we went through the first round that your IT band was screaming bloody murder on this side, but not so bad on this side, but that this side, your piriformis was screaming, I'd like for you to do the IT band for this side and your piriformis for this side. Because we don't go and tell your body, I need to do 10 of these and 10 of these and be as symmetrical as possible. This is where we're listening to your body. Your body needs it over here and over here, for example, right? So you go where it needs it. So your right and your left leg may be different. We're going to spend 1 minute on the right leg, 1 minute on the left leg, going where you need it. May not be symmetrical. If you didn't notice anything, just pick one of the 3 and do the same thing on both sides. Here we go. Ready, set, and go for it. 1 minute on the right leg, whichever of those 3 you've chosen. And this is your opportunity to relax a little further, go a little bit deeper, maybe find that one spot, settle into it. Got about 15 more seconds on this one. And then start to ease off of it. Get ready to go to the other side. So whatever your left leg needs, go and go there. So 1 minute starting now on the left leg. So the way that I construct this class and the way that I construct my groupings of muscles, I always do 3. As I said before, everybody's going to have a different experience. For some people, the IT band is it. They're just like, oh, that's the one that I need for sure. That's very common. For some people, the piriformis is often a surprise. And for some people who've had a lot of trauma to your hamstring, that would be your surprise. So it's one of those things where you got to go where your body needs it, not kind of like just treat it as, oh, you know, I got to do 5 of these, 10 of these, whatever. You find what works for you. You find what your body's asking for. These 3 muscles, the reason why I chose to group these in one is because all 3 of them play a very unique yet connected role in hip stabilization. So your piriformis is your rotator muscle, right? It definitely stabilizes the hip and helps to connect to your hip flexors and your core in a pretty intrinsic way. You're almost done. Likewise, your IT band, if it's tense, and go ahead and rest, that was your minute. If your IT band is super tense, it can actually modify the way that you work through your TFL or your glute medius, and obviously your hamstring, which is really important for sagittal hip stabilization as well. Let's go to finish with a center split. Go ahead and take the legs out to the side. And I like to develop 3 different lines of tension. If this is a hard position for your back, you can actually sit on your roller, however is comfortable for you, right? You can actually here. If that feels a little bit more comfortable, you could do that. From here, ideally you can have your hands on the floor so your low back doesn't tense out. And I want to think about 3 points of intention. Your chest is going to go up, your heels are going to go out. So all 3 of those points, heel, heel, top of sternum, all 3 of them pulling away in 3 different directions. Go ahead and find that. It's not about how far apart you can get your legs, it's about how much you can expand the body top and out. And just stay here for about 5 breaths. If you've got your hands on your on the floor behind you, this is often a really, really great way to feel like you can open your collarbones and let the throat kind of lead the way upward. Stay here and breathe for a second. Go for about 2 more deep breaths. And then go ahead and ease up. And remember, I always close the class this way. Remember that this class is a practice of listening to your body and kind of reciprocating in that conversation that we have with it. We get so ingrained with just telling your body what to do. Hopefully you've noticed maybe 1 or 2 things, maybe a roll or 2 that we did today really resonated for you. That means that you've got homework. This is a class that gives homework. You're not going to be able to solve all the world's problems in one foam rolling class. This is where we investigate, find out where the needs are, and then if you can actually take those things, maybe it was the foot rolling, and you just incorporate that into your week maybe 2 or 3 more times, you will start to see your body change if you're able to listen to those things and apply, because it really is about consistency and then coming back to those places that need it. And then every time you come to the class, it's that reinvestigation, because the body is always changing. So hopefully there's some takeaways from this class. If not, hopefully you feel a little bit more like butter. That's all that I have for you for today. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. Have a good one. Hey, did you enjoy class? I hope so. So if you're interested in taking more classes with me, there's tons of ways to sign up. So to get yourself into class, all you gotta do is decide if you want to do a membership or if you want to do class by class. If you want to go class by class, you just buy 5 class pass, 10 class pass, 20 class pass, however you want, or you can opt to be a member. There are 2 types of membership. You can either be a full access member where you get access to everything, all the classes on demand anytime, plus the full video library of constantly updated classes. I record every class I do every week, and you'll have access to take those classes anytime you want. We also have the video only membership, which gives you the option to have access to that full library without going to the full throttle membership. Now that's for people who might have more unpredictable schedules, or maybe the class times don't work for you. That option is available to you as well. Plus, with membership, you also get access to full discounts. You get access to a lot of giveaways, tons of options with memberships. And you can choose from a huge variety of class types, from flexibility training classes like flowing flexibility, foam roll, all the way to strength conditioning, bar classes, balaton classes, or some of the high intensity interval training like HIIT, Tabata. All that stuff is available to you. And just by having an active pass of any kind, either a membership or a class pass, you have access to an updated library of classes the whole time, whenever you want. And just by participating, you get to be a part of the rewards program, which is points that go directly towards dollars, which you can put towards free fitness gear, free classes, special events, membership payments, all kinds of stuff. So points equals dollars. You get points just simply by taking class, by being there, by showing up, by helping share on social media the things that you did with Ken Scott Fitness. Tons of ways to get points, tons of ways to spend them. Super, super fun, and it's super engaging as well. So
I hope you like what you saw, and if you ever have any questions, you can reach out to me at ken@kenscottfitness.com. I'd love to hear from you, and hopefully I'll see you in class.